Let's do a quick temperature check, shall we? No, not on the economy, not on democracy. I mean the water.
Good speech. We got great reviews. I can't believe it. We got good reviews in that speech. Usually they say he's a horrible dictator type person. I'm a dictator. But sometimes you need a dictator.
Okay, but it's not boiling.
It was warmer under the last administration.
Why are you being so dramatic?
I already posted about this.
This brings us to Year 1 governance, a masterclass in believing two things at once, such as executive orders are tyranny, except when they're efficiency. Congress is important, except when they're inconvenient. Power should be decentralized right after it's centralized. See, we were told this was not authoritarian. This was necessary and temporary because of the urgency, just this once. Again, remember, Orwell warned us this would not feel dramatic. This shift doesn't shout, it kind of just shrugs. In Politics and the English Language, Orwell wrote, "Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind." Enter Year 1 vocabulary. Now, I'm not talking about the social media nonsense of unalive in the place of kill, murder, die, or pass away. I'm not even talking about the nonsense that is cot boy in place of boycott, which I literally just heard for the first time this weekend. I mean words used by elected and handpicked officials like enforcement instead of raids, security instead of surveillance, relocation instead of removal, efficiency instead of bypassing Congress. And of course, who can forget the newly formed the Board of Peace? Because nothing says peace like military oversight. This is pure and uncut Orwell. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Except now it's laminated with its own logo. Now, this year was not governed by legislation. It was governed by motion, flux, a constant state of flux, endless executive actions, announcements without process, decisions framed as already done. The message wasn't debate this, it was catch up. Congress was not overridden, it was outpaced. Democracy was reduced to buffering. Orwell did not fear dictatorship by force. He feared dictatorship by fatigue. Yeah, let's be precise because precision matters. There's been some chatter framing ICE as the new Gestapo. On the surface, it feels inflammatory and insulting enough to be right, but it just feels like something's left out. The Gestapo was about political suppression. The slave patrols were about racialized population control. ICE, in its new expansion pack, resembles the latter more than the former. Here we have legalized racial profiling, community terror as deterrence, enforcement as spectacle, and just following orders as the moral shield. This isn't secret police, it's public patrol. And Orwell warned us about surveillance states. America really has perfected selective suspicion, hasn't it? Let's talk about data, shall we? Because in the first year, control arrived with a dashboard. Just risk assessments, predictive models, and administrative flags, which is funny because George Orwell warned us about surveillance states. And Aldous Huxley warned us about something sneakier, a future where people are controlled not by pain, but by processes. For example, ICE expansion this year didn't just mean more physical agents on the ground. It meant more data ingestion, DMV records, utility data, employment verification systems, license plate readers, social media scraping, commercial data brokers. Nothing dramatic, nothing even secret, all technically legal, and suddenly enforcement doesn't rely on suspicion. It relies on probability. You're not targeted because of who you are. You're targeted because you statistically resemble someone the system and its algorithms have already decided to care about. And that is the trick. Bias doesn't disappear. It just gets laundered through the software. Thank you, Palantir. So when racial profiling shows up, it's not any longer a cop just saying, you look suspicious. It's an algorithm saying, this area scores higher for enforcement efficiency. Same outcome, cleaner paperwork. And because the decision came from data, no one is responsible. Orwell warned us about the erasure of accountability. Power is not a means, it is the end. So in year one, power did not need ideology. It needed metrics. Who gets stopped? Who gets audited? Who gets detained? Who gets randomly selected? And once that system exists, it doesn't need intent. It just runs. And this is where Brave New World kicks in. Because a few people are screaming. A few people are being convinced, while many are still being sorted. And the frogs will say, it's just data. The computer isn't racist. You've got nothing to hide. Sure, but Orwell didn't warn us about evil people. He warned us about systems that no longer require them. Let's talk about Greenland. Not because it made sense, but because it doesn't have to. Empire fantasies aren't about land. They're about posture. That's the same with Venezuela, the same with all external enemies, the same with humanitarian language doing imperial work. Orwell called this perpetual expansion. Let's talk about the empire, not the old kind with maps and parades, but the modern kind. The kind that shows up as a suggestion, a joke, a what if. Orwell understood empire less as territory and more as habit. This helps explain why in the first year, we kept circling places like Greenland and Venezuela, not because conquest was imminent, but because dominance needed rehearsal. Greenland was empire as loyalty tests. Greenland wasn't about feasibility. It wasn't even about strategy. It was about normalizing imperial thinking. The question is not can we, the question is why shouldn't we? And suddenly, sovereignty becomes negotiable. Self-determination became inconvenient. And international norms became suggestions. The discussion itself did the work. Orwell warned that power doesn't always advance by force. Sometimes it advances by reframing the conversation. If you can get people to argue whether a powerful country should acquire another people's land, you've already moved the Overton window. No annexation required, just acclamation. Let's talk about Venezuela, the country that never leaves American political imagination. Venezuela functions as what Orwell would call a permanent enemy, not necessarily to be defeated, but to be invoked. It's a humanitarian crisis when useful. It's a security threat when convenient. It's a justification for sanctions, pressure, and posture. And the details don't matter as much as the role. Remember this quote: "The essential act of war is destruction, not necessarily of human lives, but of the products of human labor." Modern empire doesn't always invade. It manages collapse from a distance. There is pressure without accountability. And then there's intervention without ownership. You have destabilization, now framed as concerned. And what do the citizens of destabilized countries do? If they're able, they migrate. But anyways. This second first year didn't revive empire through occupation. It revived it through posture. Who gets disciplined economically? Who gets sanctioned? Who gets surveilled? Who gets spoken about but never to? This is empire without maps, just leverage. Orwell's empire didn't need flags everywhere. It needed permanent leverage everywhere. And just like that, domestic authority strengthens through foreign dominance. Executive power grows through international necessity. Emergency logic never expires, because if there's always a threat out there, there's always justification in here. This is not about Greenland. This is not about Venezuela. It is about training the public to accept bigger reach, fewer constraints, less debate, all while saying, relax, nothing's actually happening. And that is the most Orwellian part of it all, because Orwell didn't warn us about sudden conquest. He warned us about getting used to the idea of it. Dear states that don't comply with this administration's demands, your funding has been reconsidered. Federal money is now turned into a leash. Obedience has been invoiced monthly. And this isn't federalism, it's conditional citizenship. And Orwell understood this well. Control the resources, and you don't need to control the vote. Now let's talk about us, shall we? You and I, the American collective. Because the system worked with our help. Our outrage became content. Our complaining became participation. Our posting became the end of the process. Year one didn't just reveal how power works. It revealed how we react or don't react. And here's what it's looking like. A policy drops on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, it's a thread. By Thursday, it's a meme. By Friday, it's discourse. By Monday, it's gone. The system didn't suppress speech. It monetized it. Our outrage became a renewable resource. Platforms rewarded speed over accuracy, and snark took over strategy. You didn't need to do anything. You just needed to react publicly. And we did. Constantly. And posting became the civic ritual.
Here's my take.
Here's why you're overreacting. Here's why you're reacting wrong. Here's why we're doomed. Link in bio.
Orwell warned about propaganda from the state. The system learned it didn't have to persuade you. It only had to keep you busy. Busy explaining, correcting, quote tweeting, arguing with accounts that weren't persuadable and weren't even real. Bot anyone? So this is what Brave New World control looks like. No one is stopping you from speaking. They're just making sure speaking felt like it was enough. And slowly the temperature rises. And people didn't say, I support this. They said, what can you even do? Both sides are bad. I'm tired. I already shared the link. That is not apathy in the traditional sense. It's learned helplessness with a comment section. Did you know that power does not fear opinion? It fears coordination. And year one was very good at preventing that, not through repression, but through exhaustion, disguised as participation. No jackboots, no blackouts, just notifications. Well, maybe there was that one Verizon blackout. But anyways. Now we're starting to see some motion in the streets at the beginning of year two. And here's the thing. Last year didn't ask you to believe anything, just to adjust. And adjustment is how dystopias win. Orwell's most chilling line wasn't about boots. It was about normality. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. But the boot doesn't stomp anymore. It nudges. But here is some hope, because Orwell wasn't hopeless. He believed clarity is resistance. You name the pattern in order to break them. Memory disrupts them. Organization terrifies them. And the frogs don't have to panic. They just have to notice the temperature. And that was year one. Not of collapse, but of adjustment. And adjustment only works if we stay in the pot. If we believe what we're told instead of believing what our eyes see. So cheers to year two. We will only make it out alive if we are together.
Get back in the pot!
Fuck